Hey, what's up everybody? Andrew McGuire here. I'm a real estate agent and an investor based out of Chandler, Arizona, which is in the Southeast Valley of the Phoenix area. I'm doing lots of creative transactions in my real estate business today, whether it's helping a seller out that went on market and wasn't able to get their price and they're still motivated to sell, whether you're a buyer and you're looking to expand your portfolio, or buy a property where you don't want to go to the bank and get a 7.5% interest rate, which oftentimes for you makes it unaffordable. Definitely if you're trying to buy a rental property, it's harder than ever to be able to buy rental properties using the traditional method. So I'm specializing, I've niched doing a lot of transactions this way. And one of the top questions I always get when I'm talking to a new seller or even a buyer oftentimes is, why would a seller ever sell this way as subject to? You're telling me that me as the buyer, I'm gonna get the deed, but the seller is going to have the existing mortgage that they've already qualified to get that's in their name stay there, and I'm simply going to take over payments on that, all secured through a title and closing attorney with a promissory note with a specific set of instructions to perform as the buyer. But that still sounds really crazy or risky to me, Andrew. Why would any seller ever sell a property this way? So I'm gonna tackle the most common reasons that I've come across when I'm talking to potential sellers on why they would sell, and hopefully do some education and also talk about the risk a little bit here on this video. So let's talk about the benefits or why somebody would sell this one first. The number one reason I come across is because sellers get a higher selling price. A lot of properties today, because of the way the market is and higher interest rates, sellers are taking them onto market and they're not getting their price. And what is the agent's only solution in a lot of cases? Hey, we're overpriced. We gotta lower your price. So subject to is a way to combat that. If you have a price you know your property's worth and you wanna get that and you're not gonna sell, but you still wanna sell without lowering your price, subject to is a good way. What I find is that buyers are willing to pay a 10% premium for a house that's sold subject to. So let's just take a $700,000 house, for example. If you were to go and sell that property subject to, and you had a decent interest rate, let's call it under 5%, 4% even better, 3% even more, oftentimes buyers are gonna be able to buy that property and it's gonna be fast at 10% above market, or 770,000 is very common. So that's the number one reason. You get a much higher selling price, which creates a lot more equity for you as the seller. Now let's talk about reason number two, which also involves your equity. When you sell traditionally, I believe the average price to sell a property traditionally is between 7 and 8%. That's typically about 5% selling cost that goes to the selling and buying agent. So that's 5% of your equity right there. On average, you spend about 1.5% of your equity on closing costs going the traditional route. A lot of that's the bank's closing cost that the buyer and seller split. And a lot of times you also have to make repairs. You got to pay somebody to do this or that, or fix the AVAC or paint or move carpets when you're ready to sell. And when you sell subject to, those costs go out the window, and that saves you additional equity. When you're dealing with a buyer who knows about buying subject to, they really just want to buy your property, and they're okay with, a lot of times they'll inspect, but they're not going to ask for repairs. They know there's a premium price. And because of all of that, we don't have to go and list it on market. You can sell most of these off market and they'll still go at your price, and the buyer pays for the sales cost and closing costs on most of these transactions. So you combine reason number one, which is a higher selling price, and reason number two, which is way less selling cost, and you're getting way more equity when you sell subject to as opposed to the more traditional route. Number three, less headache to sell. I talked about it a little bit in reason number two, but when you sell subject to, you don't have to go on market. A lot of the times it can just be underdone. It can be done off market with a buyer who's ready to go and wants to buy your property. You don't have to deal with 20 showings and 30 showings and all kinds of buyers coming back and agents answering all kinds of questions. Hey, when was your roof done? When was your HVAC done? This and that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in subject to, but what I've seen, most of the buyers that are buying on creative finance or subject to are buying as is, no repairs. Now, I would still recommend as the buyer, you inspect the property, but I have buyers that don't even inspect it. They're like, hey, I know what I'm getting. I'm happy. I'm getting a nice low payment because I'm taking over a 3% interest rate. and I don't need to inspect the property at all. So I've had those, but I still recommend inspecting. But it is kind of known that when you're buying, don't ask for 20 repairs. Don't ask for any repairs. Most of them is what I see, but definitely don't be that buyer that's like, I need this fix and that fix and this light changed and all that fun stuff that goes with selling your property on market. It's very headache free and painless when you sell subject to. Often it can be done off market without having to even put your property on MLS. Reason number 4, these all tie in together much quicker. I've had sellers that were canceled, expired, tried 2 or 3 agents, and every agent swore to them that they had the magic pill, that their magic marketing, or because they're a hustler, they're gonna sell the property when it's overpriced, and it just doesn't happen. Now, again, we talked about this in 1, they're often gonna tell you to lower your price, but at some point, a lot of sellers are gonna be like, no, like you said it was worth this, and I wanna get that price or I'm not gonna sell. Now, when you change the subject to, again, without going on MLS, you can sell much quicker. I've had properties sit for 2 or 3 months through different agents and been hired to sell it off market before we even get it to MLS. And right away, we're getting multiple offers. I've had so many sellers tell me, Andrew, I can't believe nobody told me about this, that it could be this easy to sell this property at a much higher price. A lot of times we tack on money and raise that price even where it wasn't selling on market, and we still get multiple offers within a few days. So much quicker. If you ever need to move for a job or whatever, a family situation, and you need to move fast and sell fast, subject to can be looked as a potential option for you. Now, I've actually sold a property. Here's reason number 5, passive income. Now, a lot of people say real estate gets you passive income. That's true, but that's after a certain amount of time, and I'm not there yet. My income that I get from real estate is active income, meaning I get messages from tenants, or I got to deal with an Airbnb or a cleaner or something breaks. I don't have the ability to go and hire a full-time property manager that basically sends me a check every single month. And I've had properties that were, frankly, they were headaches and I didn't want to deal with anymore. Luckily, I had some equity in these properties. So what I have to do is sell them subject to. They were actually a hybrid because I had equity. When you combine your equity, which is seller finance, with having a mortgage in place, which is subject to, we just call it hybrid, putting the two together. Now, the buyer came to me and said, hey, I'll give you 10% down payment for this property, and I will wrap your equity into one payment along with the mortgage, and you're gonna get a check at your mailbox every single month. You're never gonna even know this property existed because I'm gonna take care of the taxes, the insurance, the maintenance, dealing with the tenants, dealing with the operations, dealing with things going wrong and having to fix, dealing with cleaners. All of that's gonna go away and you're just gonna get a check. And by the way, if that check ever stops showing up before it's supposed to, which is when the balloon payment hits, not only do you have the right to take that property back, but you're gonna keep my investment that I gave you down payment. And knowing how easy it is to sell subject to, I don't want this to happen to anybody, but I'm gonna take that property, I'm gonna go back and sell it again and collect another 10% down payment. But that's just me. Actually, this should be higher on the list. I don't know how this got down to number 6, but people who have a lot of equity in their properties, if they don't wanna do what's called a 1031 exchange a lot of times, where they sell and go a like for a like, mean they sell and go into a like, which is really any residential real estate in most cases, I'm sure more than that. If they don't do that 1031 exchange, which is buying more real estate, a lot of times they're gonna hit, or even their family is gonna hit with capital gains taxes. Now, a way to space that out, and I'm not a CPA, I highly advise that you consult your CPA on this matter, but one of the main reasons people are selling on creative finance and subject to is that they can avoid capital gains getting hit with them hard up front. Now, you're still gonna have to pay taxes on your income, and your CPA will help you spread that out. But the way my CPA explained it to me is you're gonna get with the income you collect today. So you're gonna collect, let's just say I sold a property for $1 million or $2 million and I have $1 million equity, and I'm gonna get 200K of that equity up front of that $1 million. I'm gonna get taxed on that in the percentage of what that is profit. So, he'll figure that out, what I bought it at, take that out of what it's worth today, put it into his little formula, and I'm gonna be responsible for that percentage of the gain, that 200K, call it. And then as I'm getting payments every single month, I'll be taxed on those, but just that amount, which is gonna be much smaller than if I sold the property outright and got that $1 million up front. And that's a lot of reason people do creative transactions and take their payments over time so they're not having to pay capital gains. Now, I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, I'm sure there's a ton. It took me a year or more to learn all of this, and I'm doing many deals to learn everything. If you have questions, reach out to me. My contact info is in the description below, or one of my teammates. We'd be happy to simply present you with the information, put you in touch with anybody like title companies, anything along those lines, to where you're not just hearing it from us. You're talking to the people directly that are paid for and hired and have big companies to protect you as the seller, me as the buyer, and they're going to be able to go more in depth with all of this. But look forward to doing a deal with you someday. Normally on my channel, if you like and subscribe, you're going to see content like this, but you're going to see a lot of deals coming too. If you ever want one of those, raise your hand. I would love to do a deal with you, and I'll see you on the next video.